Hello everyone! Today we're going to start on our large snowman drawing. Let's begin by thinking about where we want the head of our snowman to go. We don't want it too high on the page, and too low is not going to work. So somewhere in the middle, and you can have it go a little bit towards one side or the other. Once you decide, put one hand to hold the circle in place, and holding the pencil straight up and down best you can, slowly, carefully trace the ice cream lid. This is the head of your snowman. From there, you're going to draw two curving lines going off the sides for the second part of the snowman's body. Remember, this is a portrait, so we're only seeing a little bit of the top half of the snowman. Feel free to use your eraser to make adjustments. Let's give our snowman a hat. So we're going to envision where the brim of the hat is, and notice how it's going over the top part of the head. I'm going to add on a shape for the top of my hat. Mine is kind of like an elf hat. And now you can see I need to go back and I need to erase the original part of my head. So this way it looks like the snowman is wearing the hat. We're going to do something similar with the neck. So drawing a curved line between the top and middle circles. I'm going to use some more curving lines to create this scarf collar that goes around the neck of the snowman. Erase any of your lines. Draw the ends of that scarf. I'm just going to use 3 curved lines to kind of show the 2 ends of my scarf. And I'm not going to be able to see the bottom of my scarf. It goes off the page. To start the snowman's face, maybe think about which way you want the nose pointed. So using triangle shapes to make a big carrot nose, I'm going to have my nose pointed towards the end of the hat. And I'm realizing that one of my eyes is going to be covered up by the nose, so that's why I'm drawing a half circle. Add in what sort of mouth you want, and you can think about maybe adding some buttons or other details on the snowman's body. Feel free to draw your snowman or snow lady's arms, and don't forget to add some designs onto the scarf and the snowman's hat. We're only drawing the snow person. Don't work on the background just yet. Once you're done with the details on your snow person, flip it over, write your name nice and neat on the back, and get ready for the next step. For the next step, you need a smock, a placemat, and your ink bottle. All right, so just to review, we don't shake them, we don't squeeze them. To use the ink dauber, you twist off the cap, and you should always, always, always test it. Sometimes those little tops can be a little dry, or sometimes they can be too juicy. Start tracing from the top. Work your way down. Because your ink is going to be wet, you don't want to lean your arm into your artwork. So you can see Mrs. Belzer's going to start tracing the hat, and you are just gently holding the bottle and tracing your lines. Notice my lines are very juicy, so I'm trying not to stick my hand in it. Tracing the details as you go, and then think about as you're tracing, are there parts of your drawing that are too small? So if I look at my snowman has eyelashes. Those are too small for me to trace, so I'm going to leave them and come back. My other eye that's hidden, that's too small as well. So just go through and trace the big line items. And then when we're done with this step, we can always come back with a Sharpie marker and you can get any of those really small details. I decided I wanted to go a little bit more in depth with details. And we're back. Once your snowman is dry, you can take a big eraser and just carefully clean up any of your stray pencil marks. And our first color step is using watercolor crayons. Find the light blue, and we're just going to very lightly, don't push hard, color around the edge of the snowman's circles. So coloring lightly around the head and lightly around the top of the body. You might even have that light blue kind of fade off as you're going towards the center. So we're just trying to, this is like shading to add a shadow onto our snowman. Set those aside and you're switching materials now. So with these chunky oil pastels, we're going to add some more lines and designs. So on my snowman's nose, this time I'm going to add in some lines on the nose. I didn't do that with the other one. I used my bingo dauber last time. For the hat, notice I'm not coloring all of the hat yellow. I'm kind of doing a pattern and I'm adding some lines. Now, the background. We finally get to do something in the background. Using those big chunky oil pastels, you can think about what's happening in your background scene. If you would like, you can draw snowflakes. If you want to draw swirls or a sun or a moon, you can add the details you want. I'm also using a chunky white one and adding some big white circles, which we can't see right now. The next step is using just water. So grab a cup of water and a smaller paintbrush, and notice when you wet the watercolor crayon, it turns into watercolor paint. So try to wet those areas and pull that blue color towards the center, because remember, we're trying just to make it look like shadows or shading. You will end up wetting the entire snowman circle part just to make it blend in. For the rest of the painting, we will be using our last material. This is watercolor paint. So watercolor paint needs a lot of water to work. And so for this one, I'm going to start at the top of my picture, and I'm using some purple paint to make the pom-pom. For this step, because we did the oil pastel first, we want our watercolor paint to be very wet and very watery. So watch this. See how bright my red is? Notice Mrs. Belzer goes back and gets more water. If you don't use enough water right away, it's going to cover up your oil pastel. So if you look at that, you can see Mrs. Belzer just keeps adding more water, and I'm trying to spread that paint out because my first brush stroke of red was too much paint and not enough water. Notice how when you paint over the oil pastel, it makes this kind of bumpy, cool texture. And that's because the oil pastel resists the water. So if you have enough water in your paint, it's not going to stick, which is kind of fun because it adds a really cool texture. Use your watercolor paints, washing your brush as you change colors, and you're going to paint the rest of the details. So the hat, the scarf, the background, and you can see I switched to a bigger brush. And for the background, I'm kind of mixing different colors. I have like blues and purples and reds. And notice those big white dots are showing up now that I'm painting over them. So have fun painting your snowman picture. I hope you enjoy seeing the cool texture your paint makes as it goes over the oil pastel. Just remember, watercolor needs lots of water to work. Thanks so much for joining us, guys.